Hey everybody. Well, I don't think too many people can now say that we were wrong when we said the entire plan for this is for the vax and many other things, but their main goal right now is to get everyone vaxxed.
Flu season typically begins in the fall and can extend to as late as May, with peak season landing between December and February.
So it tends to be more than one viral strain that the flu vaccine tries to encompass, and it changes from year to year, which is why the vaccine has to be given on a yearly basis.
Dr. Maria Padin of Dartmouth-Hitchcock says because of COVID-19, getting that flu vaccine this year is critical.
As all organizations, we're recommending that anyone over the age of 6 months and above be appropriately immunized and seek immunization sooner than later.
Aside from your primary care provider, you can get the flu shot at pharmacies and urgent care facilities like Convenient MD, and in most cases, it's free.
Yeah, we're seeing an increase in people wanting the flu shot. We're expecting an increase in people who want the flu shot. We've ordered 35% more this year than last year, anticipating that.
Dartmouth-Hitchcock has even added drive-through flu shots for those who qualify, a creative way to social distance while still providing immunizations. And as always, doctors recommend remaining vigilant.
But above all, the same precautions that we follow with COVID, we should follow with flu, which is wash your hands, wear a mask. If you're sick, stay home.
Because flu symptoms can be very similar to COVID symptoms, they say getting the flu shot can help rule that virus out. Officials say if you do get sick and have any doubt, call your primary care provider.
The flu and COVID have several symptoms in common: fever, chills, headache. So how can people tell the difference?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lana, and you're exactly right. They have very similar symptoms, and so it's a tricky situation when we're trying to differentiate them in the hospital. Cough, shortness of breath, fevers, body aches, nasal congestion, sore throat, just like you mentioned, are in both.
It's that time of the year. From the grocery to the pharmacy, even the superstores, everywhere you turn, you are now seeing offers for the flu shot. But is it too early? This morning, John Shumway went looking for answers, and I'm hoping it's not, because my arm is still sore from the one I got yesterday.
I was going to say, it better not be too early, because we both got our shots yesterday. But it's all about the time. You don't want to feel like these people. I mean, they look miserable, to say the least.
Why is it more important this year because of COVID?
One, we want to help keep the demands on healthcare low. Getting your flu shot can help reduce your risk of being hospitalized by the flu by anywhere from 40 to 60%. When we have another pandemic going on, protecting yourself from the flu will actually help, save our resources for people who may get sick from COVID, who may need, higher levels of hospitalization. And so it's a way to keep yourself safe.
The reason that's very important is it is very hard to differentiate the symptoms of COVID-19 with the symptoms of flu. So the best thing families can do there is to get their flu vaccines. We already are starting around the country to be giving out flu vaccines.
So why, Dr. Cooper, does the pandemic make it so much more important to get a flu shot this season?
Well, every year there is the flu season, right? It starts in the fall, ends in the spring, and we can somewhat anticipate how many people will get sick. Generally between 12,000 and 60,000 people will die every year of the flu. And every year we try to match the flu strains we anticipate coming to the flu vaccine that we distribute. And every year that meets a certain variable amount of success. Now, every year we also have people that we hospitalize and we put in the ICU with the flu. And if you add that on top of the anticipated number of people that we will see with coronavirus. Now, every year we also have people that we hospitalize and we put in the ICU with the flu. And if you add that on top of the anticipated number of people that we will see with coronavirus, you could have a situation where the hospitals get overwhelmed and we won't have the space to take care of people, just like we were in the first wave back in the spring. Just like we were in the first wave back in the spring.
And have you ever had the flu, John? Like the true flu?
Oh, yeah.
It is miserable. If you've ever had it, you do not want it.
Awful. And
awful.
You don't want it.
No.
Ounce
All right.
of prevention.
Thanks so much, John. We'll look forward to your next report. And have you ever had the flu, John? Like the true flu? Like the true flu?
Oh, yeah.
It is miserable if you've ever had it. You do not want it.
Awful. And
awful.
You don't want it.
Summer is officially transitioning into fall, and with that comes flu season.
We have to be prepared for anything.
COVID-19 has changed how we do almost everything. It's also changing the way doctors prepare for the flu.
This year is going to be quite different because the expectation is with the COVID-19 virus, that combination is an unknown.
Dr. Mark Concepcion is a family medicine practitioner in West Sacramento. He says it's critical everyone get a flu shot this year,
so that we can reduce the strain that's placed upon the healthcare system.
In addition to people getting sick with the flu, some doctors say COVID-19 cases could increase again this fall.
We think it's going to get worse this winter compared to what it is right now.
Dr. Dean Blumberg at UC Davis Health says both COVID-19 and the flu are respiratory viruses that flare up in the winter.
We expect both of these to be occurring at the same time, and that, of course, could be a real disaster in terms of people getting sick with respiratory infections.
Blumberg says it's possible for a person to get both the flu and COVID-19 at the same time, but says there could be a silver lining.
The social distancing and masking recommendations, those will help prevent influenza transmission also.
There is no vaccine for COVID-19 at this point, and Dr. Blumberg says we might not know how many people got a flu shot until much later. He says it takes a while for that data to be made available. He says it might not be until flu season is over that we learn how many people got that vaccine.
We have a confluence going on right now, and it has nothing to do with our three rivers. It's allergies, flu, and coronavirus. So how can you tell the difference, and when you should you stay home? John Shumway is here with some answers. And John, you've probably heard it. Someone sneezes or coughs and they say, it's not a COVID cough. It's not a COVID sneeze. I'm fine, I swear.
Yeah, we're very defensive about these things, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, the bottom line is these days, when in doubt, stay home. But it is more complicated than that. There are similar symptoms across allergies, flu, and COVID.
You have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words. Yeah. But Dr. Slawi, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
The head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slawi?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
he said it's a possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after
when it's
that.
Generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be delivering.
This is the same man.
It's all set up. It could also be after
when it's
that.
Generally available.
We're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be delivering.
This is the same man.
It's all set up. It's all set up. It's all set up.
By Easter, this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same man.
That was said sarcastically, you know that. That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President.
If we get the vaccine, and pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President.
And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You hear him right there talking about bringing in the military. They're already there. I mean, they're telling you right to your face. Then he says, well, they can do 200,000 people a day. Like, what? Like, this is just crazy, right? I mean, it's so obvious now. It's right in front of you. And you even have them talking, Biden at the end telling you, oh, I don't trust you, we trust our scientists, right? That's what they always say. You're not allowed to think, I'm not allowed to think. Trust our scientists or else. It's just, it's right in front of us, it always is. And now, what I'm gonna play for you next is a short clip of an interview with a doctor from none other than Johns Hopkins University, okay? You need to hear this and watch his body language, his demeanor. Watch how he laughs, smiles, giggles, almost just, uncontrollably at one point, like where his evil is just coming out. He's just so happy with what they're doing. And just like we've been talking about, he comes out and says that parents, anybody, you are not going to be able to figure out if it is the flu or CV. He even goes on further, though, to say not even doctors can decide or see, which it is without a test. What was this always about? Getting the vax, testing and tracing, those were two of the big ones for sure. So you see everything that we've said has now come to fruition, and it's only going to continue to, unravel exactly like they've been showing us.
We are getting ready to get right into the thick of flu season, but how does the coronavirus pandemic impact this time of year? Joining us this morning is the director of the Department of Emergency Medicine at Johns Hopkins Hospital, Dr. Gabe Kellen. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So how concerned are you about flu and COVID sort of mixing this fall?
Well, pretty concerned, because most years we're only concerned about the flu, and there are several types. And as you know, many years we have a horrendous run of very sick patients coming to the hospital and overwhelming the health system. This year, as the weather starts to cool and people are more indoors and people are becoming fatigued of taking all the precautions and not associating with each other, this could be a double whammy. And getting one doesn't protect you from getting the other. And in fact, if you get one, it actually weakens you to some extent for being set up for very bad outcomes with the second, because both attack the lungs. So once your lungs are affected by, say, influenza, and then you get COVID, that's a very bad setup. But the reverse is also a very bad setup. Even if you have a very mild episode of COVID, you yourself may not notice that your lungs are affected because you're relatively healthy. But now you're set up with the flu, which also attacks the lungs. So we're pretty concerned both for the population and for what it might mean for the health system.
And it seems like earlier than ever before, the flu vaccine has really been pushed this year. How important is that going to be moving into the fall and winter?
Well, unlike COVID, we have a vaccine. We know it's safe. We know it's effective. Like everything else, it's not 100% for everyone, but it's sufficiently effective that if the population took it, it tremendously tamps down the number of people who will get the flu. So I couldn't urge your listeners more strongly, go out now, just get this flu off the map for you so that you only have to worry about how to avoid getting COVID.
Well, and what's going to be frustrating for, I'm sure, hospitals all over the area, but also these school systems as they're going to return to some sort of in-person learning, is differentiating between the flu and the coronavirus. It's very difficult with some of these symptoms to do that unless you have the test.
Absolutely. And there's no percentage in trying to differentiate, right? They both have fever, cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, sore throat, runny nose, the usual types of things, muscle aches and headaches. And although the percentage that you might get these in one category might be slightly different than the other. There's no way a layperson can tell which they have, and doctors often can't tell. In fact, generally, we would not be able to tell without a test. There's no way a layperson can tell which they have, and doctors often can't tell. In fact, generally, we would not be able to tell without a test. So don't try and, actually one of the biggest messages from this morning is if you feel fluish, if you feel like you're coming down with something, don't just say, oh, I guess it's a cold. It sort of feels like my usual cold. I'll just kind of stay at home, and if some of the people in my household get it, it's not that big of a deal. No, it's a really big deal. It could be the flu, and it could be COVID, and you may not be that affected, but if you give it to others, it could be lethal to the other people.
And you had mentioned the word fatigue, and that's something that we heard a lot about this week is COVID fatigue, really just folks sort of getting sick of it all and maybe not taking the proper precautions, and that's something you're concerned about.
Very concerned, and I'll be the first to admit this affects all of us, right? Mm-hmm. We started taking these heavy-duty precautions sometime in March, masking, physical distancing, endless washing of hands, and using disinfectants and so forth. Unfortunately, it has to be a way of life. Unfortunately, it has to be a way of life. And the fact of the matter is we know it works. Think about, since March to now, almost all of us get, 1 to 3 colds? Mm-hmm. Those of us who generally masked and washed our hands and kept reasonable distance from people, most of us have not had a cold. So we know this works. So I just urge all the listeners, just hang in there. It is difficult. It's difficult for me as well. So I'm not just preaching, but it can make a huge, huge difference to our lives here in Maryland, to our economy. We don't want to have the economy shut back down and businesses shut back down because we have a huge surge. So let's just all do our part.
Oh, Dr. Kellen, very well said. And you have a very nice, calm, cool demeanor about you. So I felt my own heart rate just sort of lower a little bit just in this interview. So thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I just can't stand him sitting up there talking like that, just laughing, and it's just so evil, and you can see it in his eyes, everything. And we have to share this information because clearly the agenda, one of the main goals, is to get you vaxxed. And if you're not prepared, you don't want them showing up, just like Trump said, with the military. So you want to be prepared to do whatever you have to do to protect your family. Everybody stay safe, stay strong, no fear. Remember that, no panic, only preparation. Everybody have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. God bless.